My name is Victoria Franco. I'm 31, and I build things for a living. Not the cute, hobby kind of building people like to romanticize on social media. I mean real construction, frames, trusses, load-bearing walls, the bones of buildings that other people trust their lives inside. I'm a union carpenter based out of Portland. I started my apprenticeship at 19, made journeyman by 23, and for the last 4 years I've been running my own crews. The work is steady, $42 an hour, full benefits, pension. I own a small 3-bedroom house I bought 6 years ago when the market dipped, and I drive a paid-off truck that looks its age but has never failed me. I'm not rich. I'm not struggling. I'm stable. That word used to feel solid, grounded, something to be proud of, until it started sounding like an insult. I met Nathan Cole 3 years ago at a mutual friend's housewarming party. He was 29, worked in marketing for a tech startup downtown, and had this open, unguarded laugh that made people lean in instead of away. When I told him I was a carpenter, he didn't blink. "That's actually really cool," he said. "You build real things." For the first few months, he meant it. He asked questions about my projects. He came with me once to see a custom deck I'd built for a client, ran his hand over the smooth railing, and smiled like he was proud of me. It made me feel seen in a way I hadn't realized I'd been missing. We didn't live together, but we might as well have. Nathan kept his apartment closer to work. I had my house in a quiet neighborhood with a garage I'd converted into a woodworking shop. Most weekends, he stayed with me. Things were comfortable, easy, or so I thought. Nathan's family was different from mine. His father, Graham, owned a successful accounting firm. Quiet, observant. The kind of man who listened more than he spoke. His mother, Patricia, hadn't worked since Nathan was born. Her full-time occupation seemed to be charity boards, country club committees, and reminding everyone, subtly or not, that she belonged at the top of every social ladder. Nathan also had an older sister, Alyssa, a corporate attorney in Seattle, married to a doctor. Together, they were the kind of couple people called a power couple without irony. My family was simpler. My dad was a machinist. My mom was a school secretary. Both retired now, living in a modest house they paid off years ago. My younger brother, Evan, teaches 3rd grade. We don't talk about portfolios or prestige. We talk about fishing trips, home repairs, and whether the Blazers will ever get it together. At my parents' house, no one performs. Food gets passed in mismatched dishes, and leftovers are love. At Patricia's house, everything felt staged. The first family dinner happened about 4 months into dating Nathan. I wore khakis and a button-down shirt, figuring I looked presentable. Everyone else looked like they'd come from a board meeting. Patricia's eyes swept over me, quick and assessing. "Oh," she said, smiling tightly. "We don't usually dress so casually for dinner, but it's fine. You didn't know." The way she said it made it clear she'd absolutely noticed. Dinner itself felt like walking into the middle of a conversation I didn't have the vocabulary for. Stocks, real estate, charity auctions, names dropped like currency. Every time I tried to add something, Patricia would smile politely, then redirect the conversation as if I'd never spoken. Graham tried, though. "How's work going, Victoria?" he asked, genuine interest in his voice. Relief flickered. "Really good. We just finished framing a 4-unit development in Selwood. Complex project. Some tricky load-bearing changes, but we—" "Alyssa," Patricia interrupted smoothly, "tell everyone about the merger you're working on." Nathan stayed quiet, eyes on his plate. After dinner, Graham pulled me aside in his study. "Don't take Patricia personally," he said quietly. "She's very particular about certain things, but she means well." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But patterns don't lie. At every gathering after that, it was the same. Conversations about accomplishments, comparisons I never asked for. Patricia's subtle digs wrapped in politeness. And slowly, so gradually I barely noticed it, Nathan began to change. It started with comments that sounded harmless. "Alyssa's house is way nicer than yours," he said once, like it was just an observation. Or, "My mom thinks you should consider going back to school, something more stable." Stable! I was making nearly 6 figures with overtime, had benefits most office workers would kill for, and somehow my career was still framed like a temporary phase. One Sunday morning, we were making breakfast at my place. I was flipping pancakes. Nathan leaned against the counter, scrolling on his phone. "Alyssa has one of those chef stoves," he said. "Can you imagine having that much counter space?" "My kitchen works fine," I said. "I know, I'm just saying, it'd be nice to have more room. Better appliances." His tone was casual, but it landed heavier than he realized. These comments came in waves. Weeks would pass, and I'd think we were past it. Then he'd visit his family or talk to his mom, and suddenly my house was too small. My truck was too old. My career had a ceiling. One night, in the middle of a movie, he said it out of nowhere. "Mom thinks you should look into project management." I turned to him. "Project management?" "You know," he said quickly. "Something where you're not physically on job sites forever. Better long-term health. Better pay ceiling." "I like being on sites," I said. "I like building things." "I know," he replied, but his voice softened in that way people use when they think you don't fully understand your own life. "Just think about when you're 50. Guys in my union worked into their 60s. I wasn't swinging a sledgehammer all day. I was running crews, reading blueprints, managing complex builds. But Nathan went quiet. And I could tell he wasn't convinced. Or maybe Patricia wasn't convinced. And Nathan was starting to carry her doubts like they were his own. Then Alyssa got engaged. Her fiancé wasn't just successful. He was impressive in all the ways Patricia valued. From that point on, every family gathering felt like a comparison I hadn't agreed to participate in. "Alyssa and Carter are such a power couple," Patricia would gush. At one event, she pulled me aside. "Carter's father owns a construction company," she said. "You should talk to him about opportunities." "I'm happy where I am," I replied. "Union work is steady." Her smile stayed in place, her eyes cooled. "Of course," she said. "I just thought you might want to advance." After that night, Nathan was quiet in the car. "What's wrong?" I asked. He stared out the window. "Alyssa and Carter, they're really building something together." "So are we," I said. He didn't answer right away. "I just wonder sometimes," he said finally, "what our future looks like financially." That was the first time I felt him standing on his family's side of the room, looking back at me like I was being evaluated. A year later, I proposed. I'd saved for months for a ring Nathan would be proud of. He'd joked once that anything under 2 carats would be embarrassing. I worked overtime, cut back on everything, and bought a ring that cost more than my truck. He said yes. Patricia examined the ring like an appraiser. "Very nice," she said. "Alyssa's ring is 3 carats, but 2.5 is still quite lovely." Graham shook my hand. "Welcome to the family," he said, and I believed him. Wedding planning started in June. Patricia took control immediately. "We'll need at least 200 guests," she announced. "Anything less looks cheap." Nathan hesitated. "We were thinking smaller, maybe 80. Patricia's expression hardened. "What will people think?" she asked, then turned to me. "Victoria, surely you understand the importance of making the right impression." That was the moment I realized something cold and clear. This wedding wasn't about love. It was about status, and Nathan was starting to let it be. The invitation came a week before Christmas. Patricia called Nathan directly, not me. That alone should have been a warning. "She wants to do a pre-holiday dinner," Nathan said later that night, like it was no big deal. "Both families together, blending." Blending. The word sounded hopeful, like an olive branch. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I even convinced my parents to come, even though my mom hesitated. "Are you sure they want us there?" she asked gently, like she already knew the answer. "It'll be fine," I said. I needed it to be fine. Patricia's house sat high in the West Hills, 4 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city that made Portland look like it belonged to her. When we arrived, everything inside smelled expensive. Citrus cleaner, polished wood, something floral I couldn't name. Patricia greeted everyone like she was hosting a fundraiser, not family. Dinner started stiff and never recovered. Within minutes, the conversation turned into a highlight reel of Alyssa's accomplishments, her latest promotion, Carter's research getting published, their upcoming charity gala. My dad tried to talk about a fishing cabin he'd been renovating. "Oh, that's nice," Patricia said, already turning away. "Would anyone like more wine?" I saw my mom notice, the tightness around her mouth, the look she gave me across the table that said, "We shouldn't be here." But we stayed. I kept telling myself to push through. It was one night, one dinner. After the plates were cleared, we moved into the living room for coffee and dessert. Patricia settled into her favorite chair like a queen on a throne, holding court. That's when she did it. "Oh," she said suddenly, looking right at me. "I almost forgot. Victoria, would you be willing to help with setup for the charity gala next weekend?" I blinked. "Setup?" "Yes," she continued brightly. "We need someone to assemble tables and chairs, handle some of the heavier equipment. It's volunteer work, of course, but it would be such a help." The room went silent. Everyone heard what she meant. Manual labor, free labor, because that's what you do. Before I could respond, Graham spoke up. "Patricia, that's not appropriate. The event has a setup crew." She waved him off. "I'm just being practical. Why pay contractors when... Mom, Nathan cut in, but his voice was weak, embarrassed, not protective. Patricia tilted her head. Besides, it might not be the best look having the future bride doing manual labor while everyone else is dressed formally. My mom's face flushed red. My dad's jaw tightened. Evan shifted in his seat like he was ready to stand up. Alyssa chuckled nervously. At least she's good with her hands, she said. Not everyone can say that. A few people laughed, the kind of laugh people use when they don't want to be the next target. I felt something in me go very still. Then Nathan spoke. Well, he said, a little too loudly. I could hear the whine in his voice. Mom's been saying for a while that I could probably do better. He paused. She's probably right. The words didn't hit me like a slap. They hit like a door closing. Mom's been saying I could do better. She's probably right. Not I disagree. Not that's unfair. Just agreement. Casual, public, final. The room reacted in fragments. Graham said, Nathan, sharp and disappointed. My brother stood up halfway out of his chair. Patricia looked satisfied, like something she'd been waiting for had finally happened. And me? I felt calm, scarily calm. 3 years of comments, comparisons, and quiet compromises suddenly snapped into focus. Every moment Nathan hadn't defended me. Every time he'd repeated his mother's words like they were his own thoughts. I smiled. Not a fake smile, a real one. You're right, I said evenly. You can do better. You should try. Nathan's face shifted from smug to confused. Wait, what? I stood up slowly, grabbed my coat. Mom, Dad, Evan, I said gently. We should get going. I looked at Graham. Thank you for dinner. Then Patricia. This was enlightening. Nathan jumped up. Victoria, wait, where are you going? Home, I said. Merry Christmas. The drive back was quiet at first. My dad was the one who finally spoke. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Don't be, I said, and I meant it. I needed to. When I got home, my phone started buzzing. Nathan calling. Again and again. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop, and I started writing an email to the one person in that house who'd ever treated me like I mattered. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time before I typed a single word. The house was quiet in that deep, late December way. No traffic, no neighbors moving around, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock over the sink. My phone lay face down beside my laptop, vibrating every few minutes as Nathan kept calling. I didn't pick it up. If I spoke to him now, I'd soften. I knew that about myself. 3 years doesn't disappear in one sentence, even a sentence that cuts clean through your chest. So instead of answering him, I wrote to Graham. He deserved to hear it from me before Patricia reshaped the story into something unrecognizable. The email took me nearly an hour. I kept rewriting lines, deleting anything that sounded defensive or angry. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. By the time I finished, it was almost midnight. Subject, Christmas dinner. Graham, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out privately about what happened tonight. First, thank you for inviting my family and trying to make us feel welcome. Despite how the evening ended, I appreciate the intention behind bringing both families together. I also want you to know that over the last 3 years, you've consistently treated me with respect and genuine interest. That hasn't gone unnoticed. What happened tonight didn't come out of nowhere. The comments about my career, the comparisons, the implications that I'm somehow not enough. Those have been building for a long time. I accepted them because I loved your son and believed we could build a life together despite our differences. But when Nathan agreed with his mother that he could do better, he made a choice. Not just about our relationship, but about what he values. I didn't leave out of anger. I left because I realized I deserve to be with someone who's proud of me. I make an honest living. I own my home. I treat people with respect. If that isn't enough for your family, then this was never going to work. I wish Nathan happiness. I hope he finds whatever better looks like to him. Thank you again for your kindness over the years. Victoria. I read it 3 times, changed a comma, fixed a sentence that sounded too final. Then I hit send. At 11:47 p.m., I forwarded the email to Nathan. At the top, I added one line. This is my final communication regarding our relationship. Please don't contact me again. Then I blocked his number. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, like I'd finally put something heavy down. The next morning, Christmas Eve, my phone exploded. Missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Texts from friends asking if I was okay. A voicemail from Nathan's office phone. Another from Patricia's number. I didn't respond to any of it. I made coffee, stood at the kitchen window, watched the sky lighten. Around 10, an unknown number called again. Something in me said to answer. Victoria, a tired voice said. It's Graham. Hi, I replied softly. I read your email, he said, 3 times. I waited. You're right, he continued, about all of it. That caught me off guard. I swallowed. Patricia and I had a long conversation last night, he said. Well, I talked. She didn't want to hear it, but what Nathan said was inexcusable. I exhaled slowly. Thank you. I should have spoken up sooner, he added. You deserve better, from all of us. We talked for almost half an hour. About my work, about my family, about how some people confuse status with worth. Before we hung up, he said quietly, Nathan is going to realize what he lost. Maybe not today, but eventually. By then, I said, it'll be too late. Christmas Day was peaceful. Pot roast at my parents' house. Old movies. No tension. No pretending. Then, 3 days later, Nathan showed up at my door. I saw his car through the front window and felt that familiar tug in my chest, but it didn't pull me backward anymore. I stepped outside before he could knock. It was one comment, he said immediately. I didn't mean it like that. I looked at him carefully. Really looked. It wasn't one comment, I said. It was 3 years. He opened his mouth to argue. I held up my hand. This is over, Nathan. He stared at me like he hadn't expected that, and I realized something then. He truly thought I'd come back. Nathan didn't leave right away. He stood on my porch like if he waited long enough, I'd change my mind. Like 3 years of history might suddenly outweigh 3 years of quiet disrespect. Victoria, he said again, softer now, you're really going to throw all of this away? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just shook my head. You already did, I said. I'm just not picking it back up. That was the first time I saw fear replace confusion on his face. He tried again. Texts, emails, even messages through mutual friends. I ignored all of it. Silence wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary. A week later, he crossed another one. I was on site, hard hat on, reviewing framing with my crew when one of my guys walked up. Boss, he said quietly, there's a guy asking for you at the gate. I looked over. Nathan stood there in a tailored coat, phone in hand, completely out of place among lumber stacks and muddy boots. I didn't go to him. I finished my walkthrough, signed off on the inspection, gave instructions for the afternoon. After 20 minutes of being ignored, he left. The second time, he waited until lunch. 5 minutes, he pleaded as my crew fell silent watching. Please. I met his eyes. This is my workplace. If you show up here again, I'll file for a restraining order. The word restraining finally landed. He backed away. After that, something shifted. The weight I'd been carrying, trying to be impressive enough, quiet enough, flexible enough, was gone. My crew noticed. You good, boss? One of them asked one morning, handing me a coffee. Yeah, I said. And for the first time, it was true. Work picked up. Referrals rolled in. I took on extra projects, hired a young apprentice named Tommy, eager and green and reminded me of myself at 19. Life didn't explode forward. It settled. Then one afternoon at a lumber yard, I ran into Alyssa. She looked uncomfortable, hesitant. For what it's worth, she said after an awkward pause, you handled everything with more class than most people would have. I nodded. That was enough. Later, I heard Nathan had started dating someone new. A finance guy Patricia adored. I didn't feel satisfaction, just sadness. Watching someone choose approval over happiness never ends well. Graham called a month later. The new relationship imploded. The man was condescending, controlling, everything Patricia wanted, and everything Nathan couldn't live with. I'm working on setting boundaries, Graham said quietly. Your email was a wake-up call. I believed him. And then, unexpectedly, I met someone new. His name was Ethan, middle school science teacher. We talked for 3 hours over coffee. When I told him what I did for a living, he smiled. That's amazing, he said. Could you teach me sometime? No judgment, no comparison, just curiosity. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was being measured. 6 months passed faster than I expected. Not because anything extraordinary happened, but because my life finally stopped revolving around proving something to people who had already decided my value. Work stayed busy. The referrals from the West Hills project turned into 2 more residential renovations, then a contract to build custom cabinets for a new restaurant downtown. I hired another apprentice. My shop stayed lit late most nights. Sawdust on the floor, music low, the kind of tired that feels earned. My house felt bigger without anyone quietly judging it. Nathan didn't disappear from the world, but he disappeared from my life. Every now and then, a mutual acquaintance would mention him in passing. He was doing okay. He was figuring things out. He was regretting how everything went down. None of it changed anything. Graham called occasionally, not to push, not to ask, just to check in. We talked about woodworking, about the way standing up to Patricia was harder than running a company. She apologized to me, he said once. Not to you, but it's a start. It wasn't my start. Mine had happened months earlier, at a dinner table where I finally understood that humiliation is a gift when it shows you exactly where you don't belong. I spent more time with my family. Sunday dinners, my brother Evan showing up with stories about his students, my mom watching me like she was relieved I'd come back to myself. You breathe differently now, she said once, like you're not bracing for something. She was right. And Ethan? Ethan was easy. We took things slow. Coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into dinners. When I showed him my workshop, he didn't critique or compare. He asked how things worked, asked if he could try. When he messed up a cut, he laughed instead of apologizing. That's on me, he said. Teach me again. No one had ever asked me to teach without implying I should be doing something else. Valentine's Day came and went quietly. No drama, no grand gestures, just homemade pasta and bad wine and laughter that didn't feel like it needed approval. One night, months later, I thought about that Christmas dinner, about how calm I'd felt when Nathan said he could do better. At the time, I thought something inside me had broken. Now I understand. It had finished. I wasn't too small. I wasn't lacking ambition. I wasn't not enough. I was just standing in the wrong room, trying to be chosen by people who only valued appearances. Walking out didn't ruin my life. It gave it back to me.